Hello everyone, I'm teacher Felipe and welcome to our English grammar tips. And in this video, I want to show you how simple present works in English. Alright, so simple present is the most basic construction in English language. And for example here, I study English, okay? In this sentence, I have the three most basic elements for sentence construction: a subject, a verb, and a complement. Now it's very interesting to know that in English, verb conjugation is minimal if compared to Portuguese, Spanish, French, where you have different conjugations for different people, for different persons. Now, in English, we have a certain variation, which I will show you in the next slide. But basically, the verb stays the same. Take a look. For example, here, I speak English and French, you speak English and French, he or she or it speaks English and French. We speak English and French, you speak English and French, they speak English and French. So you see here, the verb pretty much stays the same. It didn't change much, except here when you have he or she or it speaks. But I'll explain this to you in the next slides, all right? So another important thing about the simple present is putting sentences in the negative and the interrogative. And to do that, we need auxiliaries, and we have basically four. Well, we only have four. For example here, I don't speak Spanish, which is true. I tried though. I wish I could, but I don't. I don't speak Spanish, and the don't is a negative auxiliary for I, you, we, and they, as opposed to he doesn't speak Spanish. Now, for he, she, and it, we use the auxiliary doesn't, only for these three, right? Now, for interrogative, we have do you speak German and does he speak German? So similar to the negative, we have also two auxiliaries for the interrogative, and one particular case for he, she, it. Now, you might be wondering, oh gosh, he, she, it is a problem. Let me show you. It isn't as complicated, all right? So when you have he, she, or it for affirmative sentences, you put an S in the verb. And sometimes this S can be ES or IES. It depends on the verb ending. For example, when the verb ends with O, CH, and SH, you put the ES. For example, goes, watches, washes. Now, if the verb finishes with Y, preceded by a consonant, you change this Y for an I, and then you have IES. For example, studies, tries. And you notice that place doesn't change much, right? You just put an S. For example, he plays. Y preceded by a vowel doesn't change, all right? For negative sentences, I use doesn't. Now, interesting also, when I use doesn't, the verb goes back to the base. For example, she studies English. She doesn't study English. Note that when I use doesn't here, the study goes back to normal. And the same thing applies to interrogative, where you use does. Example, he watches series. And for the interrogative is, does he watch series? Again, here, when you put does, the verb goes back to the base. All right? Now, it's your turn. I put here some sentences, and I want you to change them to negative and to interrogative. So, pause this video, and we'll correct together in the next slide. Okay? So, pause. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay, good. Pause. All right, let's go to the correction. So number one, the example one, I don't play soccer at school. In interrogative, do you play soccer at school? The second phrase, we don't eat cookies for breakfast. And interrogative, do you eat cookies for breakfast? They don't like to study English. Do they like to study English? There's a question mark missing there. Sorry. She doesn't watch series on TV. Now take a look. I put doesn't because it's she, and the verb goes to the base. She doesn't watch. Same things Same thing is for the interrogative. Does she watch series on TV? And finally, he doesn't study French at home. In the interrogative, does he study French at home? All right. So I hope you got everything correct. Let's go to our final slide. I want you to take some notes. Okay. So rule number one: verbs start with to. All right. To speak, to study, to work. But when you conjugate them, they lose it. For example, I study, I speak, I work, okay? Except when you have two verbs in a sentence. For example, I like to study or I need to work, okay? Rule number two, auxiliaries for negative and interrogative are don't, doesn't, do, and does. And you use them according to the person you have, okay? I, you, we, they. For affirmative sentence, we just use the verb. For negative, you use don't. For interrogative, you use do. For he, she, it. For affirmative, basically you add an S, depending on special cases. And for negatives, doesn't. Interrogative, does. All right? So that's all for this video. Thank you so much for asking, and I hope to see you soon in the next video. Okay? Make it a great day. Thank you very much. Bye.